Okay, part 2 of the So You Want to Make a Junk Journal. I got a little ahead and I glued my cover pages on because I thought they need to dry because we want to do the front and the back. So here's my dodgy mushroom picture and I glued it using the boils, and I've cut down this is going to be my inside cover, which is also from that session at class. When you're cutting your papers to fit your cover, I do recommend cutting each individually. So whatever you want on the front, measure it to the front. You can see I've left a little edge here. Ordinarily, I would stitch this on the machine to secure it, but we have other options as well, which we'll play with today. So yeah, because this might be slightly different size to that, and if you cut them all the same size, you could end up in tears. So this is my inside front cover and my inside back cover. Now, I'm going to reinforce this using some old, look, I mean, it's not this old, I've inked it to age it, but it is old, I don't know, sticky medical tape. And I'm trying to decide, do I want to have it? I think I'm going to have it, I think I'm just going to have it on the inside. So I'll put that on now. Now here, and I'll overlap it a little bit with the front. Here you can see, this is the colour it really is. And I've just rubbed a dirty dauber. That sounds very wrong, but it isn't. Just rubbed a dirty dauber on it to, you know, colour it a little. Okay, I will just have those bits folded over top and bottom. Now this, because it is very sticky, it may make it a little difficult when we come to stitch through, but now you'll notice I remembered to do it here before I put these on. Now I've done that, I'm not loving this. So I'm thinking, one of the things I didn't mention, a supply you might like, is ink. Now you don't have to buy fancy ink, you can just use any old ink pad you've got lying around. I'm just going to ink the edges of this and make this a bit dirtier again. A bit more in keeping with the journal. And this time I'll have to match my crookedness. There we go. You could use, you could use anything here. You can use duct tape, washi tape, probably not ordinary sticky tape, but see, that gives quite a nice finish there. If you had trouble with your edges lifting, you could put tape all around your edge. Let's first of all, that was the other thing I wanted to show you. When you cut a piece of paper, if it's coloured, you get quite a white edge, and one of the tricks for just making things look less new, I suppose, or less white, certainly, is to ink the edges. So you can use a sponge, like a makeup sponge. You can just run it on the ink pad like that. Don't know why, that makes me feel funny, like nails down a blackboard. There we go. And now they just look a little less high contrast on the edge. I'm thinking I should have put this on the front. Never mind. Let's go boils. And don't be shy. Give it a good covering. Watch me get covered in glue. A good covering all over. So we'll Pay particular attention to the edges. And the corners, but also just all over. We want it to really be secure. And then place it on. I like to have an old chucks around because I get very gluey. I am a messy little thing. Now you want to press that. This does not dry as quickly as the art glitter glue, but that's an advantage because if you get this not quite in the right spot with boils, you can move it. With the art glitter, pretty hard to move it. Once it's down, it's down. Okay, we'll do this side. And again, I'm just going to glue it so I've got a little frame of brown paper bag framing my beautiful artwork. This is the sort of thing you do when you don't want to waste any of the ink that you squeezed out. All right, now while that dries, I will stick it under that. And I've kept my nice little offcuts of those. Now I got so carried away earlier with choosing the papers for the journal I'm going to make that I quite forgot to just go through some of your options when you're choosing papers for your journal. And it is what you have around the house, and obviously you may not have these, but they're good to watch out for. Especially if you go to op shops or book fairs, you will always find old stationery like this that somebody was probably gifted and never used. And these are lovely, probably mulberry papers. They make beautiful additions to your journal. And this one even has envelopes. And this will, in time, become another journal. Old diaries. Now these also you can find at op shops. Here's one that somebody's given to the op shop with all their things in it. Don't want that. And it has beautiful illustrations which you could use to cover your journal. This is nice, heavy kind of cardstock. Ooh, except it's front and back, so you'd have to choose between that and that. But then you've got these pages, which I don't know. You might want to use that. You might want to have that in your journal. It's evidence of a life lived. It's interesting. I like this kind of weird edge. Oops. Oh, gorgeous illustrations. I would have bought this probably for the illustrations. Yoink. Ooh, above everything. Envelopes. Either bought envelopes, used envelopes, or here's one I made with scrapbook paper. And I might include that in my journal. Old vintage, look, 1941. This would have been something of Dad's. But you know, all this beautiful old vintage paper, they don't make paper like this anymore for general consumption. So it's lovely. If you don't want to tear up the original, this is from Dad's diary. Ian goes to big school. I've just photocopied these or scanned them or something and then printed them on coffee dyed paper. So now I can use that to my heart's content. Old notebooks. I mean, look at this, 1973. I've just finished watching Life on Mars. It was 1973. So again, you can use the paper, you can photocopy anything you don't want to lose. All sorts of old notebooks make great pages. Modern notebooks also I generally just tear off the branding or cover it with something. But this kind of thing, you know, you want to add a page in, you want a bit of colour, or you want some grid paper. Here's some vintage graph paper. Origami paper usually has lovely illustrations. Wrapping paper. Don't waste it. You've got one side to write on, one side to decorate, or you could write on that. You could make yourself quite sick following the line. Here's another bit from a writing set or a gift notebook of blank handmade paper. Colouring in books. Colouring books are fabulous. So these make excellent pages in your journal, because who doesn't like an excuse to do some colouring in? You get the illustration if you don't want to colour, or you get both. Foreign language. A lot of the foreign language stuff comes on interesting papers. Same with old books. Here's a vintage kids book. And this kind of thing, you might want to keep the illustration for something, or you might want to just pop this in as a page. It's got plenty of space to write on, and lovely graphics. Old, what's the word? You know, well, this is from a scientific journal. Reprint. This kind of thing. These old papers take watercolour really nicely too, if you want to have a go painting on them first. Music paper. So much music paper in the world. That's obviously a pretty new one, but there's a lot of vintage, like really old tattered vintage ones that aren't much good for anything else, but they're beautiful in a journal. Something your child painted, or your brother or sister or you painted. I still have paintings from when I was in kindy that my mother saved, and so does Q. I think this is something I've done more recently. Gardening books. These old gardening books have beautiful paper, lovely illustrations, some in colour. This is a glossier one, but really lovely. Brown paper. I love brown paper. In fact, here's a page from a Woolies bag. End papers. If you do find a damaged book, or you decide to harvest an existing book for the pages, pay attention to what's, when you open the book up, this is the end paper that's in there. Some of them are beautiful. This is from a quite modern book. I also always keep, from the bigger books, there's often a few blank pages before you get to the beginning. And the paper, this is lovely. Encyclopedias, dictionaries, children's encyclopedias. These are a great resource. I mean, everything's online now, and there are so many that vintage and newer that people just don't use. I particularly like kids' books because they tend to be a larger format, so you've got more options. You can fold it. I mean, I'd probably chop it there, but fold it so everything is the right way up, as opposed to this, although I don't really mind either. Kids' books, we both love illustrations, and we buy old books purely for that. I've done a few journals using these gorgeous, quirky style ones. Oops. Here's another one. Probably kept this for the octopus. Look at that. Make a gorgeous addition to a journal. And then big art books. For when you're building the really big books like I showed in the previous video, bam, there's a page. And solid paper, so you can also use it for making other things, like envelopes that you might want thicker paper for. So have a look around your house. You're never going to look at the paper and books in your house the same way again, be warned. Now, what did I choose for the rest of mine? Because I decided, and this is generally what happens, I was just planning to make a simple journal, show you making one using a Woolies bag just with a, you know, a really random selection of papers. But then what usually happens, once I start, I get an idea for what I want it to be filled with. So in this case, all of these samples from class. So I went through and I found a few others. So we were playing with granulating paints. So this was a full sheet of A4, I think, or a bit larger watercolour paper. I trimmed it off. It's going to be a little tall, but I didn't want to chop off the ears of whatever that is. And I've kept this bit because that will make a nice sturdy pocket. So I've got that one. I'm going to use this envelope. Don't need those. Now, I have these, which, if you've been watching my accordion journal series, you will have seen me. These were also from working in class, just watercolouring on different sorts of paper. I'll glue on here. Now, I'd love to use this, but it's very old and fine, and when I stitch through to attach it to the book, it may get damaged. So I'm going to reinforce it. This is a bit of dressmaking pattern, another thing you can find in abundance, at the op shop. But you can also just use tissue paper. The large journal of Q's that I showed in the last video, she's been using beautiful black tissue paper, which has a T2 logo on it, but the backside, I guess, the side without the logo, is nice and soft and textured and has no logo. So she's been using that and made a feature of it on the outside of her papers. So that has, in effect, doubled the thickness of this, and when it's dry, I'll refold it. And same with this one. I need to fold it so I know where I want to put there it is, the dressmaking pattern. And if you don't want the words to be quite as obvious, just glue on that side. And then they disappear a little bit. Okay. So now those are reinforced and ready to go. The only other page I found that I really wanted to use as a reminder, I have been hoarding good watercolour paper for many years and it lost its sizing. So this is what happened. It just went, sucked up all the paint, became impossible to actually do anything with other than watch it disappear into the paper. However, I have since successfully resized it, so this is just a reminder of that whole episode. Now I want to attach this envelope as well. All right, what have we got? I want to put this in. It's interesting how, like, so many of these, including the mushrooms on the cover, I just really didn't like. This was supposed to be a bird's nest. This was supposed to be a bird. Something else was meant to be an egg, and nothing really worked. But folded in half, where you fail, you don't notice what it was supposed to be. They're just nice additions to a journal. I don't think I want that one there. I think I might put... Which way up does it go, do you think? My apologies to anybody who knows and watches me do this in horror. I'm going to put that one there because I like the way it looks against the pink. And then I might put that one there because I like the way that looks against the pink as well. Now here we have this very torn page. So I could, look at that. I might do that. I might reinforce this by attaching this And in this instance, I will use my art glitter. Now if I attach that there, but then this is still lifting, so what I might do, that's going to go like that, which is fine, but I do want to secure this. Here's another bit of stuff that we did in class that I don't like. Ooh, I hope that's not bad luck, tearing this down. Too late if it is. I'm going to glue that there. This time using glue stick. So you see, you can just, like, you're really making a junk journal equals making it up as you go along. So whatever you have that you want to use, whatever direction your muse takes you, just glue that one down a bit better. You could just follow it. Follow it and go with it, and yeah, see what happens. Now I've got a few scraps here. Here's another bit from that I didn't much like, but I'm going to pop it in here. There we go. Little memento. So now I've got that. Oh, my butterfly's upside down. Whoops. It happens. It happens a lot to me. Okay, now what have I got left? I might put my doggies in here. I want this to be a pocket, so again, I'll just glue. Art glitter is really good for this when you know where you want it to go, bam, because it sets so quickly. Now, is it going to make a fool of me? This watercolour paper is pretty heavy, but no, it's even going to glue that happily. Very good. Okay, going to have those there, staring at the upside down butterfly. Then I might have this lovely one from Kerry here, so that's my little fold out. I might not need that one. We might go... Oh, now what we didn't do was the Woolies bag, so we'll have that here. Will we have that there? Will we have that here? Maybe there. Okay, now oh, whoops. No, that's right. That's right. Okay, so now this is looking pretty right to me. It's let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you'll notice I'm counting all of those as pages, even though they're varying weights and thicknesses. But as a rule of thumb, I find 10 to be often a pretty good size for a signature. That's, you know, you're going to work in that, adding, gluing things in, writing, painting, filling pockets. It'll fatten up. So 8 to 10 is generally the size we make our signatures, roughly. Now, the only thing that's bothering me is this. I don't know that I want that to be so neat. So I might just, I don't want to lose his ears. Oh, now I've glued that, so that's a bit late. Maybe I'll just do that. I think that'll do. Yeah, it'll do for now. All right. Now, shall we have a look at the book and see if everything has, oops, stuck down. And yes, it has. So with that in that, that's going to be a really nice size. And actually my taller piece isn't going to stick out too far. And I've just got a little bit of Woolies bag poking out there, which I quite like. Sometimes when you join all your papers, you end up with a, you know, because these ones, hard to explain. You know what I mean? When you fold pages, if they're all the same size, the ones on the inside will poke out further this way because they've got less room here, and you can just trim if you need to. But thankfully, I don't feel like I need to. Okay, now this is where my paper clips are going to come in handy, but not for everything because I've got so many short pages. I really recommend hunting down some large ones because look at this, if I put that over there, that is going to hold that. So I tend to put one on each side, making sure that's in the fold. So that is over like that. And now when I get my pokey tool, everything's held together and all my holes will line up. We need something to sew with. I'm going to use this green thread, but you can use anything, and I will find my glasses. I like to use a big blunt needle because then I don't have to struggle threading it. On this one, we're going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Now, a pamphlet stitch is pretty much the simplest, well, no, tying a ribbon around or a bit of elastic around, that's the simplest way of binding. But a pamphlet stitch is the simplest way of stitching your book together. You need an odd number of holes. Why is this looking so crooked? This is this is when I'm glad it's a junk journal and it doesn't matter too much if it's a bit wonky. You need an odd number of holes, so you can do 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever you like. If you've got a, you know, like you've got a book that you want to sit really well and be perfect, I always do 5. On here, because I've got a lot of short papers, I'm just going to do 3. And, you know, this isn't going to get a lot of use, this book. It's just really a demo. You want your thread, I think, about 3 times. That's heaps, probably. Cut that, thread my needle. You don't have to measure, which I love. You're going to just eyeball the middle and carefully poke a hole until your pokey tool comes out here. Now I want to catch this page, so I'm going to come into here and here, equal distance from there. If these were all full pages, I'd probably come in like an inch down from the top. So here, again, just poke. It's a little hard because of that sticky tape that I put on the spine. Sometimes I glue fabric on the spine if I don't want to use tape, and a little strip of fabric will reinforce it just as well. Now again, you decide, do you want to have your knot on the inside or the outside? This is green. My mushrooms have green grass. I'm thinking I might do it from the outside. So let's poke it in there. I have a very large needle. And leave yourself thread there, and then it doesn't matter whether you go up or down, but you go in through there, and then you come back to the bottom and in through here. Oops, my fingers have so much glue on them that they are sticking to the needle. I'll just make that hole a bit bigger because this needle has a very large eye. Come on. I don't know why, but it's often quite awkward to get that through. Okay, so we've gone in the centre, up to the top, down to the bottom, and then we're going to go back through the centre. If you were doing a 5-hole pamphlet stitch, you would go in through one hole, weave up and down, across, up and down and back through. So you always enter and exit through the same hole, and then it's just a matter of weaving and coming back around like a big loop around wherever you start. So you can start at the bottom. I'm not going to go there, that's too awkward. Anyway, when you come back through on this side, just make sure it's on the other side of that central bit, and then you want to check that these are tight, which they're not. But that's right, you just simply pull, and now they'll be nice and tight. Not so tight that they're tearing the paper, but tight enough to hold. And you can do a knot, you can do a bow, you can leave it long, you can dangle some little mushroom charms off it. Carefully remove your paper clips. Oops. And there you have it. Recycling a Woolies bag and some old artworks. And now there's a journal with flips and flaps. Oh, that's right, I had made pockets. You can see how crooked this is, but luckily it doesn't bother me. I'll just glue these edges down. There and there. And then I found some other things that I've done in class, so there's a painting we did using granulating paints, and I've rounded the corners, and now that becomes a little, what we call a journal card, so just a blank backed card that you can tuck into a pocket to use to write with, write on, not with. And here, this one isn't going to fit in there. That's another experiment with granulation. And that can go in there as a sample. And then I've got another pocket here, which what would I do? I could put the card from Kerry in there. Ta-da! And then, of course, it's just a matter of doing whatever you want in it. So I might dress this up. You know, I might decide I don't like that. Ooh, might want to use a bit of this somewhere. Might want to make notes about I might in here put how I learned to resize the paper. So you can keep it just as a record of something that you've done, or fill it to your heart's content until it gets really fat and gorgeous and your very own first junk journal. I hope that you have made one for yourself and that you've enjoyed it, and next time we might work on covering one of the pieces of packaging. What I didn't talk about was using old book covers. So this was a kid's sticker atlas that the stickers had gone from, and I cut it down because I wanted to make a couple of make a couple of these covers from. But now I'm left with this, look, and it's got its spine. And I thought that could be quite cool, making a long journal or cutting it in half or even thirds to make some smaller, you know, ready with its signature. Just have to rip that out. So yes, start collating all your scraps of gorgeousness around the house. Doesn't matter whether it's just, you know, something like this. Whatever you have, you can turn it into something meaningful, useful, and beautiful. Go forth and multiply your journal stash. I'll see you next time. Bye.